2D on the review. There's a lot going on here. There's an x to the negative 5 inside parentheses. There's a 6 on the bottom, and there's a negative 2 up top as an exponent. So first thing I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to think about what this negative does to a fraction. Flips it. So the first thing I'm going to do is flip this as 6 over x to the negative 5. Now that exponent 2 is positive. Thank you. Okay? Now, listen. That was this negative out here flipping these. Right? But now that x to the negative 5 is down here, we're actually going to flip it back up top. If you have a negative exponent in the denominator, remember the bunk beds. It's not happy being on the bottom bunk, so you're going to send it back up to the top. You're actually not going to have a fraction after this next step. It's going to be 6x to the 5th squared. From there, you could square the 6 and make the x to the 5 times 2, which is 10. So the final answer there is 36x to the 10th. Go ahead. Next part, G. So all this stuff is inside the parentheses being taken to the 3rd power. Before I do anything, I'm going to look inside the parentheses to see if anything can be simplified. Can we simplify 2x to the 5 over x squared? How? You subtract exponents. So it's going to be 2 to the x, 2x to the 3rd, right? 2x to the 3rd. And we still have that little cube out there. Yeah, I can't get that little, there we go. I can't get that little cross to go away. So it's there. Now, what's 2 cubed? What's x cubed cubed? X to the 9. That's the answer. Moving on to H. If you like, you can regroup these. There's really no reason to have parentheses here. I think the parentheses are involved because of all the negatives here. But there's no adding. There's just this times that. You could rewrite it as 6 times negative 4 times x to the negative 3 times x to the negative 5, if you would rather group things next to similar terms. What is 6 times negative 4? Negative 24. That's the coefficient. What do you do with the exponents when you're multiplying with the same base? You add them. So I need negative 3 plus negative 5. You get negative 8. Now, I'm going to show you the final answer and then talk about it. You'll notice that the negative 24 stayed upstairs. And the reason it stayed upstairs is it doesn't have a negative exponent on it. There's no negative 8 here on the negative 24. Negative 24 is just a number. It doesn't have a negative exponent, so it stays up top. The x, however, has what on it? A negative exponent. So this piece ends up where? On the bottom. Now listen. If all of this would have been in parentheses, now who owns the negative 8? Yep, both of them. They both would have ended up on the bottom. But the fact that there were no parentheses here means that just this is affected by the negative exponent. If you want to check your work on any of these problems in this section, it's pretty easy. Pick a number other than 0 or 1. How about 2 or 3 or 8? Fine. Okay? Take the original problem and put your number in for x and plug it into your calculator. So you could do 6 times 2 to the negative 3rd times negative 4 times 2 to the negative 5th, and you'll get an answer, right? Take that same favorite number and plug it into your answer. If it gives you the same answer on your calculator, you simplified it correctly. For example, up here, if you thought 8 was your favorite number, put in 4 times 8 to the 4th times 6 times 8 to the 6th. Get an answer. Then plug in 24 times 8 to the 10th. It should give you the same number. If it gives you an overflow, that means your favorite number is too big, and it's giving you too big of an answer, because we have some pretty heavy exponents going on here. Pick a smaller number. I recommend that you don't use 1 or 0, because 1 and 0 have some special rules about them. They won't work, okay? What's 1 to any power? Itself, 1. So it's not going to be a good tester. All right, I'm going to stop the video there, and I'll do I and J as a separate video.